Hello and welcome to Thought Exchange, where our ideas are currency. I am your host, Nigel Fox, and today I invited on Kenny Blackshear, a good friend of mine and a multifaceted artist in the domains of photography, drawing, music, and most recently, bartending. I found our conversation fascinating as it branched from topics like motivation and success to handling failure, all the way to social media comparison and beyond. We had some minor technical difficulties with the video and audio quality, but despite that, I hope you enjoy. Kenny Blackshear, welcome.
What's going on, bro? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to have you here. Happy to have you here.
Glad to be here, man.
Of all of my friends, you kind of took investing in your craft pretty seriously early on. So I want to ask you, like right off the bat, do you think investing in yourself has been worth it?
In the long run, yes. Sometimes I'll say like in the moment of doing it, it's hard to just give yourself the green light and say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna make this purchase, whatever it is." It's in my particular field, the the price range is pretty high starting off. Like photography isn't a cheap endeavor to embark on, so there's moments I have where I'm like, okay, this lens costs over $500 or whatever, and I'll be like, I could definitely break this 500 into other things, but and anytime I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do it. It always helped and benefited in the long run, and it's one of them things where it's like, okay, I even if I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do with this thing just yet, I know there's a need for it. So once you just find the need, it makes, investing in yourself a little easier.
Definitely. I think it's interesting. Obviously, we both work in a creative space. You with photography and drawing and a lot of visual art, and now getting into writing and stuff like that, writing music.
Hmm.
And I've had a similar. I think starting off, I had a bit different of a philosophy, like, or maybe it wasn't a philosophy, and more of just like a fear of investing in yourself. Like, am I going to sink this money into something um, that really,
Yep.
at least at the time, feels like it's just for pleasure, right? Even though your photography is paid dividends, and I'm hoping that my own creative uh, endeavors do that in the future. But
Hmm.
definitely in the moment, it can feel like, am I really about to sink hundreds of dollars or maybe even thousands of dollars into something that the ROI, the return on investment, is not tangible whatsoever, right? It might
And
not be
it's more
tangible for
so
years.
in the realm of return on investment. It's like, right, this huge purchase. It's not like you're buying a renting a hotel room or whatever. Like you'll have this experience and then it's like once it's done, it's done. Like if you have something that you just spent a lot of money on, odds are you're probably gonna have this thing for a while. Like my first big purchase as a photographer, which was a lens, funny enough, um, I had that lens for like 5 years, and I was oftentimes that's my logic in making big purchases is like, okay, if I was spending the same amount of money on something else, would I be as satisfied? Not even on the do I need this type of level, but it's like am I gonna be satisfied with this purchase, right? Because at the end of the day, our hard earned money, we want to be satisfied when we're spending it because you hear it all the time. Nobody wants to spend money on bills. You have to, but it's different when it's something else that is going to benefit you, right? Like, so if you're going to have something, I'd look at that purchase as a better option because it's not something that's just gonna dissolve after it's done. It's gonna be useful as long as you want it to be useful.
Yeah, I think to play devil's advocate a little bit, because it's something that I've experienced. How do you find that balance between not like just jumping out the door and getting something crazy that you're not ready for, and like trying to make the most of the equipment or whatever resource you have, because in the arts, I feel like a lot of creativity comes from limitation. If you have no bounds on what you're trying to do, then you're just all over the place, and it doesn't result in the best end product, right? I imagine if you're
Yeah.
shooting and only using one lens, or you're shooting and you're only using black and white, like that kind of limitation sparks your mind to be innovative in that space. How do you balance that with also trying to, like, it's time to level up. It's time to get some new shit.
Yeah. Well, the first step is wanting to. Like you have to want it. It's nothing is gonna happen if you don't take the steps to do it. And it's more so like I always keep in mind, like, the first question I ask myself is, do I want to do this? And if the answer is yes, then I'm like, okay, how do I want to do this? And I just kind of go off of that type of mindset. And after I'm like, okay, this is something I want to do, and I figure out how I'm going to do it, then it just becomes like putting together a puzzle. After that, it's like you might give yourself a deadline. I mean, like, I want to have X done by this time, and if you just break it down into the small components, then it it'll get easier to manage as a whole. Because I feel like as creatives, we often look at the bigger picture, right? Like, it's easy to be like, oh, I have this whole thing I want to do, and I know I want to do it. I just don't know how. But when you just break it down step by step, even if it's something that might take a while, is like you'll be much more satisfied with it in the long run, for sure. If you just take those small steps and just break the problem down into the smallest chunks that you could, handle. You don't want to bite off too much more that you could chew, because then it's gonna be overwhelming, and then odds are you'll start it, but you just might not finish it. And if you do finish it, it might not be the completion that you want it to be. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely biting off something you can handle is it, it's a pretty important lesson to learn, and I think that a lot of people don't learn it because they don't. Well, a lot of people don't try in the first place, or they've tried once or twice and set maybe a goal that's a little too high and a little too quick, and because of the immediate or maybe pretty immediate failure, they're like, "Oh, it's always going to be like this." But
Mm-hmm.
you have to enjoy the steps along the way, the process along the way, those little
Yeah.
successes.
I tell everybody, like, this is the fun part. Like, the analogy I tend to use is anytime I've put in a cheat code for a game, I've had fun with it for a little while, but it was never as fun as when I earned this thing that I was putting the cheat code in for. Like, you play GTA, you want money. It hits different when you worked for that $1,000 as opposed to just putting in the cheat code for it. Like, the grind is the fun part, because when you're not so much in that part of the grind anymore, then it becomes a nice memory or story that you could use to share with people who might be in that same place you were. Or it just helps with perspective at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the analogy to stories there is pretty apt. I was talking with a friend recently, um, just about like how stories play a role in our lives, and it was kind of a precursor conversation to
Mm-hmm.
another episode of the podcast. But just in the sense, like we as people like a good story, and we want to be able to look back on our lives and the path we took as a good story. And yeah, the cheat code is not the good story. It's just the climax of the story. It's just this one little bit, and without that context, without that being in relation to the lows, to making no money or no success or being criticized or whatever it is or falling flat on your face, the success doesn't mean as much, and the story isn't there, and you know what I mean? Like even when you see short form content like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, whatever it may be, you can even in those types of videos, a lot of the most successful ones have like this story, like, and you may not think of it as a story, but like there's a timeline, like, oh look, this mother did this because of this, you know what I mean? It's got that emotional music in the background or whatever's going on. It kind of like makes you like, oh wow, that person achieved so much. This is where he started. This is where he is. You know what I mean? Like it's I think a fundamental part of what drives people to do things is they want to be able to say they did the thing, not that they ended up at the top.
And whether that's for personal reasons or just to be like, hey guys, I did this, it's you want to be able to tell that story. There's steps to the story as opposed to being like, hey, I put this cheat code in and this happened. Like it's kind of like looking at things like being like an overnight success. Like granted, I don't think there's really such a thing as an overnight success because you look at the people who they say are overnight successes and they typically have been doing whatever that got them successful for at least a while, a year or two, maybe. But like, if I ever just started something and this like one thing I did was good, and you know how today's times are, you might blow up at any given moment if it's the right post at the right time, right? That wouldn't feel as like validating to me on a personal level as grinding underground, trying to figure out my plays, and then I bring it to the masses and it's like I did all of this. And nobody ever even knew, that mentality and that course of action is just like that's my preferred course of action because to be bro, imagine you just wake up one morning and people are hitting you up like you're famous now. You be like,
What?
okay, yeah, like all right, cool, I guess, but like, and then that's just kind of sorry. That's kind of when you start asking yourself like, okay, what am I really doing this for? But that's another question in itself, which could be a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull on that thread a little bit, not too much, but I was talking with another friend recently about like satisfaction and the things that we get satisfaction out of, and I think for the most part, people kind of fall into two camps. I'm sure there's other, maybe it's not bimodal or whatever the word may be, but like people who get satisfaction from doing the thing, and then there's satisfaction from how the thing affects other people. And I guess maybe I shouldn't break it down into two because I think there's also people who get satisfaction from the results of the thing. You know what I mean? Like maybe not building the company, but making the money after you build the company almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the other camp would be building the company, and that company provides some service or product that helps people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like what camp in those three, or maybe beyond that, you think you fall into with a lot of your endeavors?
I would say just putting in the work, man. Like that's my favorite part because the rest of it's gonna come regardless. Like I actually had this conversation recently. I don't like doing what I do for money. I like the best part about it is the love of doing it, and then whatever, you know, awards or compensation you get after the fact, that's just a bonus. But like actually putting in the work, knowing that I'm putting my best foot forward every time I step out and share what I'm doing. That's the most satisfactory part for me. Where it's like the money's nice, but you often see when, you know, people in whatever field get too concerned with the money, the original love for whatever they're doing kind of falls to the wayside. And then it's like you might see this person down the line and you're like, oh, you still do such and such, and it's like, oh nah, I don't, I got tired of it. It's for whatever reason. But it's like I feel like if you keep your intention about, you know, your original love for what you're doing, then everything is a bonus afterwards. The if you want to be famous off of whatever you're doing, if you want to just make the money off of whatever you're doing, just have the love for it, you know? Just have it be something that you cherish overall, and then you'll be able to see the results you want to see regardless. So that's more so how I kind of carry that camp I'm in, as you said.
I think that I'm pretty similar. I create music, and I'm writing a book right now, and doing other things. Obviously, the podcast, and I enjoy doing it a lot. Like regardless of what it is, like anything that pushes my capacities to their limit or stretches. It's almost like stretching, but not just mentally, but your full set of capabilities, right? Organizing stuff and planning things, writing music, being creative, in all these different aspects. And I really enjoy that. I also find, significant importance in having those things impact people, you know what I mean, on a positive level, right?
Right.
And then the money part is, I'll say this about money. I think that money is important. I think that is obvious to some and less obvious to others. And a lot of the time, I think people who say that money isn't important end up being forced to focus on money because they never focused on it when they should have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think money is important, and it is something that I put a lot of energy into, not specifically in the context of, making sure that my music or my podcast or my writing is profitable, but in my other, career ventures and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Because I want to be able to focus on those things without having to worry about money. You know what I mean? And if you're constantly thinking like, oh, money doesn't matter, I'm not going to worry about it, it doesn't motivate me. Well, it's going to force you to motivate you, because money is just, it's a figment. It's what you use to buy food, and you do need food. You know what I mean? Like it's money isn't really a thing.
You need to pay for your bills and like
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And of course, the flip side of that is wanting money for the sake of money, which I think is also, not a great mindset either. It's it's having that proper balance of like, I know I need money and I need to focus on money so that I can do and experience the things I want to do, have the impact I want to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely find that, yeah, it's pieces of paper. And nowadays, like most people don't even have cash. It's not even pieces of paper. It's bits on a computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy. What a crazy time we live in, man.
Definitely a time of rapid change and rapid, opportunity. I feel like there's so much opportunity out there to, if you're a creative. Or I read this book called The War of Art that I was telling you about last time I was in Philly. Mm-hmm. And the author, blanking on his name. It's like Steve or something. I'll look it up in a minute. But he talks about art as being kind of a more inclusive than just photography, painting, drawing, music.
Right.
And I would take it even a step further than he does. But I think most things are artistic. You know what I mean? Like there's a way to make them artistic. Whether it's advertisement or running a business. Like there's an art in the nuances of how you market yourself or getting the right pricing or all of these things are up to you. They're all these little decisions in the same way that, what brushstroke you're going to use in a painting is your decision, and the final product is a construction that you made from scratch, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And those things
And it's
are
all about what you. Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, and it's all about what you want your work to say. Like when you're doing art, it's in whatever format it's in. It's you do a particular thing, or you say a particular thing because you want to get a message across. Just I was just kind of piggybacking off of that thought you had just threw out there.
to look into it a little bit further. The those little brush strokes in painting, or the just getting the angle perfect in a photo, or the lighting perfect, kind of in your vein.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to realize that you had to do, like, little things, address the details to get your artistry to where you wanted it to be? You know what I mean? And like continue to make it better.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. It took a long time because, as we were talking about before, as artists, we get caught in the bigger picture. We don't, and that's a skill to be able to break anything down into small steps and go, put a building block on top of a building block. So for a long time, I want to say I didn't really grasp that until I was late teens, and I've been doing art for a long time. Like late teens. I want to say even early 20s is when I kind of really got it down and started finding my routine, so to speak. But it was just a matter of I had to stop looking at the overall project and break it down into the small components, so that way it's just easier to think. And I feel like it takes artists a long time to get that skill, unless you're that type of person anyway, and that's just how you approach problem solving. But you know in different mediums, it's difficult because I also, not only do I do photography and illustration, I'm starting to do music as well. So like I find when I'm writing, I'm like, I'm thinking of this entire song. It kind of restarts. Like I'm looking at the whole bigger picture instead of just breaking it down to the small components again. And I have to catch myself, focus on this one line or these two lines, instead of trying to think about how I want this one phrase to pair up with this one phrase at the end of the verse, like in the beginning. And I'm just like, okay, if I just write, I could come back to it. I could get there, and then I could take care of it. And then, typically once I do it that way, it's a lot easier to maintain and manage, for sure. But it takes a long time to get that skill mastered.
Do you think that you are a perfectionist?
To a fault, bro, honestly. Like, it holds me back sometimes, and it's hard to check that side of me because, especially when you put years into something, after a while you want everything to be You want everything to be the the best thing. You want everything to be perfect, But that'll never be the case. No matter how long you're doing whatever you're doing, it's everything isn't gonna be tip top perfect because that's what makes your good work great is it stands out amongst the rest of the work you might have done. Like a banger I took 5 years ago that I held as the holy grail, bro. I look at it now and I'm like, wow, that's as hard as I could come back then. Like, but at the time, that was, the pinnacle of my skill, and just had to keep it moving and had to keep it pushing.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that a lot. I am. It is weird because I would definitely say I'm a perfectionist, and I've gotten that sense from you before as well. But also in what you said, and I feel the same way, is like sometimes you can get caught up in the big picture, and it leads to you kind of brushing stuff under the rug almost in a kind of this contradictory way. Um, but yeah, when it's easiest for me to relate on the music stuff, but you can spend forever writing a line. You know what I mean? Or writing one bar, let alone the entire song, um, and that's just the lyric aspect of it. But it is definitely like a blessing and a curse. You know what I mean? Because you'll pay attention to details that no one else would pay attention to. Maybe the audience will never even pay attention to, at least consciously. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, it can also be like paralyzing to try to accomplish anything, to try to finalize anything. And that's definitely something I've struggled with and gotten better at, especially over the past couple of years, where like, all right, this song is done as it can be. You know what I mean? I can spend another 3 months on this song, and guess what? I'm still going to want to work on it for another 3 months because art is an ever evolving thing. You know what I mean? Like, if Da Vinci was still alive, he would still go back to the Mona Lisa and paint that shit again. You know what I mean? Like, and you see that if you go into these art museums, like the artist has painted the same painting many times, and they have it they have it up next to each other. Or maybe they have it at different places across the world. And it's like, oh yeah, he painted this one when he was 25, and he painted this one when he was 27, and he painted this one when he was 34. And it's all slightly different reinterpretations of the same thing. So it is definitely like I feel like it's a pretty common trope, at least among artists or creative people, is trying to get shit perfect.
Yeah, and it's who's to say Da Vinci could have made the Mona Lisa better? He could have wanted to redo it all he wanted for as long as he wanted, but who's to say like he would have come up with a better one? It might not have ever have been a better one, but like, and it's kind of up to you as the artist, but a part of that is also leaving it to the audience's interpretation. Like you said, is they have to receive it. You know, you could have he could have done the Mona Lisa again in another 5 years or whatever, and people still choose the first one he did as opposed to the later one for whatever reason. Composition purposes, color might be off ever so slightly, and shoot, even that's just my artist side talking, because right, people might not ever notice, oh, this color isn't exactly like how this one is, but that goes along with the perfection side of it, because right, as artists, I tend to think about stuff like that, like, dang, if I was to do this song over again, I would change this maybe, or I would do this over again. But when I've shown people this song or whatever, they're like, it's perfect. Don't I like it how it is? And I'm like, I don't know though. Like, and then you kind of get caught in that trap of this is why I haven't released any songs, bro, because I'm still in my head about it. Even though people are like, oh, this is some really good music, man. Like, just drop it. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I like it. It's cool, but I just don't know yet. I might go back and tweak it here and there. But that's also one of my favorite sides about art is that you have as many tries as you want until you put it out. And it's like that with music too. Like sure you can remix a song, but the original song, you have as many tries as you want behind closed doors. Once that finalized version is out for the masses, it's out there, you know? So it's hard to like get out of that perfection side when you know that. But it's just like sometimes you just gotta do it. Don't you writing a song, don't worry about the first line of the song. You could go back and fix it. Or, don't worry about how you gonna tie in this verse. Just keep writing. Like like you said, it takes long. Sometimes you might get stuck on the line. Bro, it's taken me like a year sometimes to finish a song. And it'll just have sat in my notes for a year and I'll be at this one line and I'll rap it sometimes and I'll be like, dang, it's been a whole year and I haven't written anything else to this song yet. But it'll just click. And it's a big part about art is just not forcing it, you know?
Definitely. Although I do think, and this was a point espoused in that book, The War of Art. It's not necessarily forcing it, but if you sit down to do the work, like if you, I mean, you're still in the beginning stages of writing music, but I'm sure you would agree in photography, like if you go out, even if you're not inspired, you'll find that inspiration along the way. You know what I mean? Like if you go out and walk around a city or something like that, you'll find shots that you didn't even know you were looking for. So I think while I do think forcing it in some cases is bad, I think that forcing yourself to try and to get in that mind space, the muse will still hit. You know what I mean? Like you will naturally, your brain is designed to interpret things. You know what I mean? So while you're out and about, it's going to interpret things. And if you're, a creative person, then you're going to be able to spontaneously turn that into something. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
You have to live. You have to go out and experience things to turn it into art.
That's how the best music's made.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said just a little bit ago about like, once it's done, it's done. That's the final take. That's what's going to be released. I was listening to, I think, an interview of Kevin Parker, who is the mastermind behind Tame Impala. So he writes and records everything on his own. He records with a live band, but everything is written and recorded by him on all the instruments, which is amazing. But during an interview, he was talking about like the concept of having kind of like an open-ended format to music, where like the audience, in Spotify, you release a song, the song's there, it's immutable, right? Your audience can go out and listen to it, whatever. But he kind of pitched this idea of like, he had this same sentiment where like he feels like he's never done with a song. Like he could keep going back, he could keep changing things, he could keep adding them, and he gets pressure from like his, I'm sure it was like his label or something to like, hey, like these songs are amazing. Let's release them so that people can have them. You know what I mean? But he kind of pitched this idea of releasing the music and having it being like an ever evolving thing. So like maybe you have like a near, the song is a draft 6 or whatever. So it's a solid song. And the audience can listen to that version, but then you might check back in a week. You have that version, you have draft 7, you have draft 8. And then like maybe the song this is me kind of just making stuff up, but maybe the song is about a breakup or something, right? And you come back a month later, it's on draft 11, and you listen to the song, and there's this whole new sound to it. There's this whole new vibe near the end, because in the artist's life, like, or maybe not in the artist's life, but their creative idea was like, oh, maybe they get back together, right? So it has this whole evolution, and you can kind of see the evolution of the song, and it's kind of like, in the sense where you take not like stop motion, but you've seen those time lapse videos of like, oh, I took a picture of myself every day for like a year or something like that. You kind of get this glimpse into like what that artist was trying to portray at this time. And then a month later, how the filter of who they are then is being relayed to the audience to this new draft of the song over and over again. I thought it was just a really interesting idea, and I think it probably would resonate with a lot of artists who never want to finish anything,
Yeah. Have you ever been like found yourself writing a song, and then you get to like a stanza in the song, and it hits like the first time you might have wrote it, or it felt good to like write it down, and you get to a point where like you got past that, and then you realize like I lost the whole message in this song after like, so you have to go back and redo that part because that one part kind of led you into other paths of the song where you didn't intend for it to go. Like I've had to like redo verses and whole songs, took it back to like the half of the first verse and be like, I wasn't able to catch myself. I went on a tangent on this one line and the whole song became about this one thing. You ever had to do that before?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I've rewritten not just the lyrics, but like the instrumentation. Like I've changed everything in a song, and where like you can, if you listen to the draft beforehand, you can tell it's got the same like bones, but like it's a completely different song, completely different vibe, completely different story, or maybe not completely different story, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I was watching a video recently of Skrillex making Breaking a Sweat. I don't know if you've heard that one before. Where he has the Doors on that one. And the original song sounds nothing like the banger it is now, bro. Like when I tell you the whole song was in a completely different direction, and when he had the Doors come and put their twist on it, then it became what it is. But it's like, it's crazy how an initial thought can be a whole thing in itself, but not the end result, like it's just a building block. So sometimes you have to like go back, especially in the realm of music, like you have to go back and then you have to rework this one thing to like get the feeling of it, all harmonious. It's crazy.
I was reading, or I was watching this interview of John Mayer, and he was talking about, he's kind of an interesting guy, but like he was talking about how you don't even need to like the art that you're making. Because if you think about it, like there's plenty of art out there that's, successful or at least widely appreciated that other people don't like at all. So I guess he was kind of playing with this idea of like, you don't really need to like your art, and not in the sense that he doesn't like his, but once you reach a certain level of acclaim doing a certain kind of music or a certain kind of photography, like obviously you're gonna want to branch out and stuff. He was talking about just like writing a song and not liking it at all, but recording it and finishing it anyway, and it not mattering because someone's probably gonna like it because you're not the intended audience anyway. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting idea because I only write music I like. I think like I don't dislike any of my music. You know, I might become frustrated with writing a song and give up on it, but I definitely don't dislike the things that I create in any genre or space. But I thought it was an interesting idea. I wonder if you have ever like, because you use your photography for, I mean, it's gainful. You know what I mean? You're employed through that, and so I'm curious if there's any time where like you don't like what you're doing, but the intended audience, your customer, is like, oh, that's what I wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. Like, I've had some people book me for shoots, and they told me the idea, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we could work with that. That's cool. Because at the end of the day, it's not my vision. I'm just helping bring someone else's vision to life. But especially in the realm of photography, you're not gonna like all of it. It's like the corporate work, the most is some of the most lucrative areas you could be in when it comes to photography, aside from like weddings and stuff. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's just it's work. Like it's and but I'm at these events and I do these headshots at these events and all of that, and the people love it. Like they see these headshots and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like thank you so much." And I'm like, it's always a pleasurable experience for sure. But you know, the artist side of me is like, if you only knew how this would have came out if this was actually like the enjoyable side of this, like. And let me see what else. Like I've photographing kids, for example. It's great bread and butter, and to some it is fun, depending on the age. If you catch them at that 2-3 age, just might not be a pleasant experience. But you catch them at that newborn age, and it's like, okay, I could get a little artsy creative with this because they're literally just here. Like they sleep most of the time for the shoot or whatever. But like, so it's like even certain areas, there's like there's a fun side of certain areas, and then there's an unfun side, because you can make corporate photography fun. You can do fun business shoots and make them more dynamic and whatever. But like the odds that you get to do that, unless that's your niche and that's what you market to people, but the odds that you get to do that when you're getting hired for something that's just like cut and dry event, we just need event photos and headshots for 8 hours. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
Y'all, I know y'all gonna take care of me, but man, come on.
Yeah.
It's all love though. It's all love.
No,
Have you?
I haven't really experienced that because I've never applied my creative trades as a means of income really. I played live gigs and stuff like that, but not for money, just for fun, or spontaneously. Like if there happens to be live music somewhere,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean it's a completely different side. Like you have the purely creative side, which to be honest isn't always fun. It can be extremely frustrating. You know what I mean? But in the same way, it's still satisfying, especially when you get through the other side and you see what you've created or at least learned. Um, but no, I haven't personally had that experience because everything I create is up until I'm obviously about to release an album, and we'll be working on some photography stuff for that. Hopefully, it's not
Yeah.
terrible
Stay
experience
tuned.
for
It's
you.
gonna be fire.
But everything has just been like my my mindset has just been like, I'm just writing music. You know what I mean? I'm just making it.
Hmm.
Like it's never been I'm making something to sell. You know what I mean? Or I'm making this product for someone to consume. There's
Right.
still a story in there that I want to, relay to an imaginary audience at this point because
Hmm.
nothing's released, but it's I haven't gotten to that point where I feel like a lot of artists, especially successful artists, get where like they can continue to do what they want to do, or they can continue to do what their audience wants them to do, or
Hmm.
what their label or whoever contracts
One
they have
of
with want them to do.
one of my favorite displays of that mentality as of lately is I don't know if you heard about Andre 3000's new album.
The flute album,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
every you hear Andre 3000's coming out with an album, you immediately think, "Oh man, this is about to be crazy. These bars about to be." But I think like the first song on the album is called like something like I really wanted to make a rap album, but this is just the way the wind blew me or something like that. And it's like I love that because do what speaks to you as an artist, you know. It's nice when you catch a trend and people hop on your trend or whatever, but like it's a trend. It's not going to last forever. You see it all the time. These trends come and go. So I think when you lean too much into the trying to satisfy the audience, that's when you also lose the edge on your art because you're not you're not letting your heart talk through your art. You're letting people's perception talk through your art. And it's a big difference, honestly. Huge difference.
Do you think that the you of, let's say, 5 years ago would look at yourself now and think that you're headed in the right direction? Do you think that you are becoming the person that you want to be, designing the life you want to have, whether that's artistically, personally?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Um like if and that's funny because that's a thought I have from time to time like well, if younger me could see me now, it's like I used to dream of my pictures looking the way they do now, bro. Like I used to look at other photographers and whatnot and look at their work and be like, when I get there, just wait till I get there. And so on artistic level, I would say I'm definitely where I saw myself. On a personal level, like in terms of like being in the workforce and stuff, it's definitely been a ride so far because I also bartend now. So I told you before, like I never saw myself as a bartender. It just kind of happened, like. But I also had to sit down and think, like, this is a worldwide trade right here in itself. You know, like I get good at bartending. You bartend anywhere. You can move to any state and be like, yo, go to a high end bar and be like, yo, check me out. You know, might not always work, but the one time it does work, that's all you need, right? So in terms of just like personal, citizen level stuff, it's I'm definitely at a much better level than I saw myself in terms of going to work because I always thought I was going to be like working retail and whatnot because like I'm pretty okay at retail. Like I can talk to people. It's not my preferred job choice, but it's one that I'm pretty solid at, but that is a grueling work field, bro. And where I'm at now, it's like I would do it if I had to, or maybe as a second job if I had to, but like that being my main source of income, I couldn't do that again. And so, like, younger me seeing me now would be like, oh my gosh, you did it. Like, we're not in retail anymore, bro, because I've kind of done, except on the management side, but I've done like the all the basic retail work. Like, I've been a stock person. I've worked the whole stock room by myself in different jobs. Like, I've been the sales lead before. Like, and you know, when you're in those times, it's easy for it to seem like one thing is better than the other. Like, I used to be like, oh, I'd rather do stock than be on the floor talking to customers or whatever. But it's all just as tiring. So, and although bartending is tiring as well, it's definitely a lot more lucrative for sure.
So what about you in 5 years?
Man, you know what's funny? My whole life, I could always see into my 20s, but I could never see past that, bro. Like, I don't know what it was. Like,
So big
and
wall at 30 where you're just like, whether it's
yeah,
real
bro.
or not, there's some social construct that tells you there's something different that happens beyond that line.
Yeah, yeah. Like this, that's a whole different life that you might not have thought of before. Uh, but now I'm 26. I'm 4 years away from that, bro. And it's like, okay, I'm definitely not in the 5 year span anymore. Like, I'm within it, but within the next 4 years, bro, or if you want to be technical, three, because my birthday's at the end of the year, you know, it's like, dang, 30? I, I'm gonna just keep taking life day at a time, but like, I don't know what's gonna happen when I turn 30, bro. I can never see that far or beyond that. Like, I know it's gonna happen regardless, and I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do, but like, I'll say this: the next 5 years, I just need, security, because I know I'm gonna be an artist, and I know the artist life can be very like flighty at times. So I guess I've kind of been thinking of these like 25 to 30 as like my building my security years, because I know I'm gonna want to be a full-time artist at at a certain point. So definitely have to be prepared for that life. You can't just kind of, take that leap of faith without a plan. I've tried before when I was like 18, bro. I thought I was gonna, make it work, but life shows you otherwise.
Do you generally
For sure.
have like kind of bigger, like grand scope views of what you want to do in, maybe like a 3 year goal or a 5 year goal or something like that? Or is it more of I'm just going to put my head down and go to work in the directions I want to go to? Then I'll look up every once in a while to see where I'm at.
So I know for anytime I think of my career being bigger, the idea of, you know, being a gallery artist pops in my head, you know, going to different states, setting up galleries, having the locals come check out the gallery, have different like themes for said gallery. Might have a black and white theme gallery with portraits and landscapes. Might mix both. So I think in terms of getting like where I see like excuse me, bigger productions in my career, it's like Okay. I think I want to be more of a personal um showman when it comes to my art. Like, I want people to be able to come see it in person rather than see it through a screen. And because I feel like that in itself holds more weight, it's easier to walk through a gallery and you see something that speaks to you, you're going to stand in front of it, you're going to observe it for longer than you would just scrolling on a post, right? Like, you can get close to this huge print on this wall in front of you. You can see the small details where, like, even though you can zoom in, you might not on your phone, right? So I think down the line, as I grow, I want to start curating my own galleries, and because you never know who might stumble into your gallery, right? Like, whether they're a known somebody or just a somebody, it's all beneficial, right? So curating galleries is definitely one of my future endeavors that I see. And then the more outlandish one is rocking stages, bro. You know, taking my music, going crazy on the stage, even if people don't know my music, still performing like they know every word, you know? So that and the crazy part is I can mix both, right? Like, just like with you, we're gonna do your album work for your on the photo side. I can mix both and do that same thing and have it be both of, although I'm not making the beats, it'll be a majority of my creation, right? So to be able to like go on a stage is something that I just would like to give a shot as well. So what, gotta put it out, stop being such a perfectionist about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you have some great music that is coming out. All right, it needs to come out.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Um,
sir. Definitely coming out.
I think that I'm just throwing this idea out there because I think it's awesome. But like setting up a gallery with you know, a post show just sounds sick to me. Like you've got the gallery space during, the day and the early evening, and then afterwards, like, you know, it turns into a show. You know what I mean?
That would be crazy. That would be fire,
Um,
bro.
I think that would be sick. I mean, I love mixing the different genres because even though they're kind of broken up into separate areas like photography or drawing or music or even like aromatherapy, you know what I mean? Like even scents, you know what I mean? Like even though they're broken up, they influence the senses. But I
Right.
love combining them. You know what I mean? There's nothing better than a good like music video or like
Hmm.
just enjoying these experiences together
And
that are meant to be
and that's
together.
also and that's also where like that's kind of where I'm at right now, where it's like I'm in between mediums, and I knew that you know all social media becomes whatever is the most popular platform at the time, right? So back in like 2014, it was Snapchat. Everything became Snapchat. You started posting stories on Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff, right? Now everything is TikTok. So I was like, dang, Instagram is it benefited me when Instagram became Snapchat because it was still primarily a photo based platform, but now it's a more of a video based platform. So I'm like, okay, how do I keep up with this change? And I'm like, cuz photos still do it. Photos are always going to be as grand as they are, but like at the end of the day, you still have to know how to roll with the times. So now I recognize that photos weren't just going to get me to where I wanted to be. I needed a little more engagement, and I needed if I'm gonna be posting, I needed people to have a reason to stay on this post, right? So I was like, well, maybe I'll just start doing music, and then like I'll put my music along with my photography posts, and then that way it'll create. Because if we're being honest, attention spans aren't super long, right? These days, because you got these 7-second formats, and it's like, okay, next one. But it's still, if I could create at least 5 more seconds of engagement, it might help somebody remember this post, or remember, oh yeah, this is a Philly photographer who also does music that I could actually, buy into, right? So I think I had to start learning how to roll with the punches in terms of like where things were going in terms of social media and stuff like that. So that also kind of influenced where my art went, because I just needed more engagement than just a still image.
Yeah, I'm just gonna harp on it again, maybe pull it a bit further, but like to me, the idea of a gallery is kind of like the photographer's album almost. You know what I mean? And I
Literally.
just think it would be so sick, whenever you finish your album, to shoot a gallery like in the context of your album. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
self-referencing, and then have that as the music in the room when you're during the gallery, and have a show that what I mean. Like I just feel like that combination is just such a cool. Because you're a multifaceted
The
person, and why not
curation
combine
that
them?
would
You know
be.
what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That would be a major production right there. Oh man, that's a great idea, bro. I actually might have to borrow that one.
Bro, it's all yours. It's all
That's
yours. I don't
fire.
think I'm gonna be on the gallery scene anytime soon. Maybe one day.
I was about to say you could be. You never
Never
know.
know. Never know where life's gonna take you. I
Never
mean,
thought I'd be bartending, but hey, here we are.
yeah, life takes you in different directions.
Hmm.
Something a little less, I guess, positive, but the idea of like regression, like as an artist, but also as a person, and going, you know, taking a step backwards to take 2 steps forward and stuff like that. Obviously, that's an adage, but
Hmm.
I think it can be kind of difficult when you're in the moment, living life. Any setback can feel like the end of the world, or feel like, oh fuck, like this is a major failure. Like, am I going to
Yeah.
recover? Should I just stop doing this?
Hmm.
Do you think regression is an important part of developing? I guess.
It's definitely an important part, and it's also an inevitable part. Like going back to the perfectionist thing, like every piece in every project isn't gonna be your best work, right? And I feel like there's also multiple types of regression, because you can have a personal regression, so to speak, and still be where you're at, still excelling, whatever, but you personally just don't might not feel like you're making the progress. And then, there's also the other side where, your engagement shows you, people, this project you made might not have gotten the same engagement that your last project had made, or you know this flick doesn't hit as hard as this picture, that type of stuff. So I think it's inevitable, because you always want to be better. You're always going to be your worst critic. And I feel like if you allow that regression to show in your work, then that's when the other side of regression comes, where people start to see it. And it's just a matter of, I guess, like we said, staying true to yourself, just keeping your motion going, because I don't look at regression or taking a loss as a loss. It's all lessons, because you're not gonna. step in the same bear trap you stepped in that you just got out of. You might have not saw it the first time, but when you stepped in that trap and you got out that trap, you won't step in another one. So it's all piecing together your armor. You're gonna have these moments as an artist, as a person, as a human being, where it's like, dang, what am I doing? I'm stuck right now. Like, I don't know where to go. But usually that's just a moment of like, okay, you just need new stimulation. You need more stimulation. You need a source of inspiration to kind of get you back on that drive. And it's all a personal matter of figuring out where that is.
That's pretty apt advice. I think it can be difficult to realize it in the moment for sure, especially if you're
Mm-hmm.
someone going through it right now. And I also think that regression, maybe on a more personal level, is kind of just validating your progress. I was thinking about this recently
Right.
because, like, I don't know, because I think about shit. I don't know, but the idea of like taking that step backwards because you're you're almost you want to put yourself in the same situation again. Whether it's a friendship or relationship, and I'm sure you identify with the idea of like, when you try to take things seriously, you might lose friends or acquaintances along the way who are either trying to hold you back or being negative or just aren't on the same path. You know what I mean? And sometimes I think that
Mm-hmm.
going back can be positive in the sense that it reaffirms the progress that you've made. So, you might go back to an old friend who maybe all they do is like, they like to drink and party all the time. And in
Right.
reinitiating this friendship, you're realizing like, oh, I don't fit here anymore. This doesn't feel right anymore. Like it felt right before, and it
Mm-hmm.
eventually didn't work for me. I had to move away from it. But going back, like, you might be disappointed or frustrated with yourself for going back to this friendship or this relationship or this job or whatever it is. But at the same time, you're realizing like, oh, I don't fit here anymore. Like I'm not, like I've changed the shape of who I am, and this
Mm-hmm.
is self evident because I can't. I I'm even more aware of how little this situation or this friendship works.
Yep. Yep. And kind of just like there's a certain, I want to say, feeling you get from that. It's almost a warning because it's like, oh, I'm growing. I'm actually like doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And typically when that happens, right, you get the, oh man, you switching up on this, blah blah blah. But no, it's like I'm a plant that's gonna grow. I'm not a weed. Like weeds grow weeds, but people remove weeds. Nobody removing the huge dandelion plant that they want to grow. Like I'm I've had that same trying to figure out how to say it properly. I've had that same, I don't want to call it an issue or a problem, but occurrence, I'll say, like where I've realized like, oh man, I used to fit so well here. Like we used to like this used to be the thing, and now however long down the road it's like, dang, my battery died fast on this one. Like I'm not I'm supposed to be doing other things right now, and granted, right, like you don't always have to remove those people, but you kind of just realize where they stand, you know? Certain friends that were the main friends might only be the party friends down the line, might only be the friends that you do business with down the line. But some people feel like you have to burn the bridge. You don't always have to burn the bridge. You could just, it can just be a bridge for another purpose, you know? Like it was the main bridge, but you realize, okay, oh yeah, there's other bridges, you know, down the harbor, right? Like, so it's just a matter of perspective. And I feel like as long as all parties involved are receiving this perspective in a adult and responsible manner, a mature manner, then it'll be easier for everybody to be like, okay, I respect that this person's on their path, I'm on my path, but we're still, you know, we can still be thick as thieves, you know. But it happens all the time, and you typically see it when people start making money. People feel like they should be in this position, and it's like, well, nobody's saying you can't be in this position. You just have to. You don't have to do what I do, but you just had to have the same ethic that I do. You have to, and if you don't have that, then there's nothing I can do to give you that, right? Like that's a you thing, and that's where the disconnect comes from because you know those people have noticed that you were on that same level with them, and it's like, oh well, how did they get here and I didn't? Well, we just happen to be on different paths. That doesn't mean that I dislike you or like you any less. It just means that we're just onto different things, right? So I've never gotten that misconstrued, but people have definitely have gotten that, you know, backwards with me before.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that happens when you grow, when you change. You know what I mean? Because I mean, you don't want to be the same person you
Mm-hmm.
were 5 years ago. You don't want to be the same person you are now that you will be in 5 years. Even if you're proud of yourself now, like you want to keep that trajectory and look back at yourself at 30 and be like, wow, when I was 25, like I'm proud of what I did then, but man, I'm better off now for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think that the that does get lost, you know, in translation, and people just trying to better themselves gets misconstrued. And I mean, comparison is the thief of joy, right? That saying is as old as time. Like, you know, you can't compare yourself and where you're at to other people. And you know, I think everyone does
Mm-hmm.
it to some extent, and I used to do it.
Yeah.
It's not really something I do too much now, but especially with your peer group age wise, it's like, oh, like they did this at 23, I'm 25, and you know what? But it's like, you know, but you have your own accomplishments, you have your own things that you've done, you have your own path in the sense that like all of their accomplishments might be great, but they're completely irrelevant to the path you're on. So what does it matter? You know what I mean? Like you're not living their life
Right.
and they're not living yours. You just got to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, because it's also one of the things where the influence of you know social platforms plays a big part in that type of stuff too, in that type of mindset because everybody posts their best moments, their best work, their best whatever, right? But it's literally not that, right? Like you have your moments where you're winning or quote unquote winning. You have your moments where like you feel like you're taking the loss here and there, but you know, a majority of people aren't going to show the loss side of it. They're only going to show the winning side of it. And then when you start to see everybody posting their wins, it's easy to get the idea that, oh man, we the same age. How they winning like this and I'm not, right? But no, there's been many a times where I've talked to people and they're like who seem like they winning on, you know, whatever, social media, whatever, and they're like, oh no, bro, it's like it's actually the complete opposite. And I'm like, really? You would never think. Like I've had people where I'm like, bro, the way you post, dog, like you would never think you had a bad day, bro. Like, but that's not the case. And once it didn't take me too many times to see that to know like, oh, it's not really that's not what it is all the time. Like people just posting the wins and the good side, but like nobody sees the mud. Everybody wants to be in the sky, but the mud is where you get the character from. That's where you build yourself, right? So I typically try to make sure I'm staying grounded in that sense to know that like, all right, anytime I'm on these platforms, I'm not absorbing anything that anybody's doing or, seeing this extravagant stuff that people may be doing. I'm not absorbing it. Like I'm just taking it at surface level, face value, and keeping it pushing because, it's cool to see people in these, fancy places and all of that. I love to see it, but it's also like that's just that one side and that's all they're going to show. They're not going to show their bank account afterwards, you know. They're not going to show, oh, yep, back home. Right? So, it's it's just you have to really mind how much of that you intake because it could definitely become a hindrance. Like I used to do it all the time, and like you said, I don't do it as much as you used to because you kind of step into yourself and you become comfortable with yourself and you don't care what other people are doing. But it does take some time to learn that and teach yourself like, okay, this isn't always what it is. Nobody's winning all the time, no matter what age they are, for sure.
Yeah, I think as odd of an example as it is, at least in the context of this conversation, one of the biggest moments for me, or biggest, I guess, transitions for me in this idea has been like the NFL because I love football. I love football. I love watching football. I used to love playing football. But going from like all the players that I love to watch are older than me, right? When you're like a kid, a teenager, even in college. And then you just get that slight transition, and then they're your age, and it's like, damn, this guy's a starting quarterback in the NFL. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not a starting quarterback in the NFL. You know what I mean? And then, we're getting to that point where
Yeah.
obviously there's still players our age, but like, you're older than the rookies. You're older than these fresh cats. You know what I mean? And it's like, damn, like this guy's making $40 million a year rookie contract. You know what I mean? But yeah, you just got to realize, like, come on, like you didn't do their work first of all, and seconds, like that's their journey. You know what I mean? They're doing a completely different thing, and you
Yep.
can't let that impact you because like I enjoy my life. I wake up happy, and it's not because of like certain things that I have. It's because I choose to be happy. You know what I mean? I choose to find the stuff in the day that I want to accomplish, go out and do that, and look forward to tomorrow too. And I can't be focused on the fact that this other person is doing something different than me. Because realistically, would I really be?
Right. Right.
I wouldn't be me if I was doing that. First of all, and then I also probably wouldn't be happy if I was doing that because that's not the path that I've taken. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just an
To try
interesting
to walk
take.
somebody else's path is yeah. To um, I'm saying to try to walk somebody else's path is that's a dangerous game to play because it's easy to think, oh yeah, I could do that same thing, but like, although you might be able to, this thing might not be meant for you. And if you found what was meant for you, then you know, do that. not to say you can't branch off into other endeavors, but like you want to find other endeavors naturally, not because somebody you might know or you idolize is in that position, right? And excuse me, that could just lead to a lot of confusion down the line. That's one thing you don't want, is to be confused about your purpose, right? Like, couldn't imagine putting all this time in something, and just because I wanted to be like somebody, and then you get down the line and you're like, dang, I actually don't like doing this. I was only doing this because I saw such and such doing it. I was trying to be like such and such, and because when I was victim of it for a little while too. When I first started writing raps, I was trying to be like Nas and J. Cole, and I'm like, no, like, who are you? Who am I? Where's my artistic, balance at? And once I stepped into that, my work became completely different. It's not bad to be inspired by, or do a little callback to such and such, but to literally try to walk somebody else's journey that they laid their own bricks for is like I said, a dangerous game.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people end up doing that, especially nowadays with social media. Like, there's so much influence pushing you to go like, oh, be this or be that, or like you were talking about earlier with the, why don't you have this life? Why aren't you in Dubai or Cabo or whatever, whatever place in some 5-star hotel, like, and we've talked about this idea before of working on plan B before plan A. And it kind of aligns with walking someone else's path, in the sense that, like, if your passion is, I'll say music, because that's definitely one of my passions. But all you work on, you feel like you need to work on plan B before you can work on plan A, which is music. You're going to spend all your time and energy working on accounting, trying to make sure that you're safe so that you can pursue your passion. You're going to put all this effort and energy, and like, think about all the energy and effort and reliability that people put into their normal jobs. If they put that into their passion, like, where they would actually be in pursuit of their true goals, not the goals that some third party has set up for you, for some third party's notion of success at the company or whatever it may be. But like, and even if it's not, you're not confused about what you really want to do, which a lot of young people are, and even older people are. You just got to realize there's nothing wrong with planning. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. The metaphor doesn't go that far, but in the sense that every bit of effort, every hour of your time that you focus on plan B, it's no longer going towards plan A. You know what I mean? It's literally impossible. You can't focus on two different things at the same time. You can't do your math homework and your English homework at the same time. So, like, everything you're taking and investing in this other thing that someone else wants you to do, or you feel you're supposed to do, is energy you're not putting into what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Only 24 hours in a day. Wish there was more, but that's all you get. You get 24 hours a day at a time. I use it wisely.
And it's not enough. It really isn't.
Yeah. I need at least like 30, 35 hours in a day. Cool.
I've had some pretty long days recently, but they've been extremely satisfying because I'm doing the work. You know what I mean? Like, and that's one of the best things about doing what you actually want to do, is you can sink hours into it and maybe even get nowhere from a final product perspective. But at the end of the day, you feel satisfied and you feel good about what you did. And you feel like you made some progress outside the scope of whatever the now is, you know what I mean, on your journey.
Right, for sure. Because that's all we want, man. Is us. We just want to make some progress, right? Like, no matter how big or small. I tell a lot of people that like it's easy to want to skip 2 stairs, but like, shoot, you gotta learn how to walk first. You can kids want to go upstairs fast, but they gotta climb them stairs first, and then once they get used to climbing them, they walk in them, and then you can start learning how to go up 2 steps at a time. But like, it's not gonna be that off rip. You have to learn how to be okay with the smallest building block for the next building block. Get to the checkpoints, because even the big checkpoints have small steps that you have to get to in order to complete this whole project, right? So you don't want to just skip and half step. You have to be able to learn how to, all right, even though this isn't going to get me any immediate return, it's an important step. Like, putting together a website can be fun, in the realm of photography can be fun, but personally I find it to be a little bit of a tedious task. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's almost essential that you have one, right? So when I don't feel like revamping my website, I'm like, all right, if I just do this now and put this effort into it, you know, I won't have to later. Two, it'll be easier for me to adjust here and there. And three, you know, it'll be more engaging. So you just kind of have to find the reasons to lay those bricks and lay those small foundations that at times you might not even want to or find tedious, because in the grand scheme of things, if you hire somebody to, tear down your wall and rebuild a new one in your vision, like, you want them to take their time on that. That's not something you just want them to slap together real quick. Like, so you shouldn't treat your craft that way.
I was reading a book today, actually, not even a motivational book or anything like that, just like a fiction book. It's one of the books of The Wheel of Time, which is this long fiction series. But regardless, this random quote today that I read was every let's say hour, every hour of work you do today is an hour of work you don't have to do tomorrow. You know what I mean? Just get it out of the way. Just do it. Mm-hmm. It's only going to benefit you to do it sooner, because scenario one, it gets done sooner. Scenario two, you fuck up, and then you can adjust, because you would have fucked up if you did it later too. You learn sooner or you accomplish it sooner. Those are the two outcomes. You know what I mean? So I love that quote, and I think it's kind of random that it happened to be something I read today. But I want to share another quote with you, which quote that I coined maybe like last week, but I've got it on my phone. I'm writing it down. I'm putting it up. It's kind of morbid, but it's, you will die, but your work is immortal. And for me, it just motivates me to like finish my stuff. Just do it. Just sit down and do it. Like, even something like this podcast, like, oh, I could have pushed it off till tomorrow, or, we were troubleshooting stuff before this, like, oh, I could have just been like, oh, I can't figure it out. We'll do it another time, but just do it. You know what I mean? You're gonna be happy when you do it.
Literally, it's like, why not? If it's something that you want to do or something that you want to build, why not? Right? Like, you said you wanted to do this, right? Like, you wanted to go on this journey of whatever that you're doing, but to half step it would be doing a disservice to yourself at the end of the day. And the way I see it is like, right, I know, because I'm not necessarily trying to be famous, right? But like, I know that if when I get old and, you know, it's my time and all of that, I still have this great portfolio that I've laid out throughout my life, right? And without me being here, I want this portfolio of art, photography, music. I want you to be able to know who I am off of, you know, off of these projects that I've curated throughout my life, right? And I want you to be able to get a story of who I am. And that's where the immortal side of it comes through because, you know, a Michael Jackson performance, you know, is grand in itself, right? But it's like they're so grand that even when you go back and watch them, you almost feel like he's still alive, right? Even though this concert happened before we were even alive, it's like the power and the potency in this in his craft that he put into his craft is like it just speaks to anybody. And I kind of feel like the Michaels are the pinnacle of like legacy, right? You got Tyson, Jordan, and Jackson. They're like the pinnacles of like, so to speak, that you hear of, you know, you hear basketball talk, Michael Jordan always comes up. You hear music, Michael Jackson always comes up. Mike Tyson always comes up in boxing. So it's like that's what you want to leave behind, right? That inevitability of like you can't deny what this person did. And when I'm old and my story's told, that's what I want to be like. I like I said, I'm not trying to be famous, but if people could be like, you can't deny that this guy was fire. Not even just in music, but in whatever he put his mind to, this guy was fire. Whether that's my family saying that or people that, you know, I've accumulated as fans, whatever, like that's all I want. That's the legacy
I
right
love
there.
that.
Like,
I love that you used Michael Jackson as the example because that is the exact example I was thinking of the entire time. I was just like, when you think back, Michael Jackson
mm-hmm,
is, I mean, he's, immortalized. He's one of the greatest performers and singers of all time. You know what I mean? And
mm-hmm. To kind of expand on that, like I don't really listen to Drake like that, but apparently he hit a certain number or record that's like past Michael Jackson. And I'm like, you have to think this is a streaming time, you know. People are going to these services to listen to your music. You're paying the services. People were buying Michael's. Like back then you had to buy this person's CD or vinyl or whatever, right? So it kind of yeah, it's nice to see that a lot of people are listening to your music, right? But to think about people are buying my music and listening to it, it's like, oh, y'all are invested in me, right? Like, it's not just
yeah,
like,
it's not quite apples to apples.
mm-hmm. And I say like, I would rather be the person who you were buying into because it's like, one, people could go on these services you might get a listen that somebody is like going into it and it's like, okay, I'm not really feeling this person. Everybody's just saying this person's popular right now, so I'm going to tune in and listen. You couldn't do that back then, right? Like you couldn't just like get a demo. You had to listen to a single or whatever, a couple singles on the radio, but like you bought this piece of work with the intent to listen to the whole thing. You knew you wanted to listen to this whole thing. And that's where like my disconnect is. Like I would rather be like I want people to not even financially or money, but just to buy into my work because it speaks to them. not on the more so just because it's like flashy side, right? And not to say Drake's music isn't good, but like we're just in a different time of music, right? So things are just a little different.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate it. It's a great conversation.
Yes, sir.
Always love talking to you. And life moves too fast. I don't get to talk enough.
At all, bro. And likewise, man.
If people want to find you and find the stuff you're working on, whether it be music or photography or other projects, where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram at composition dot as in period dot god, and website is kenblackphoto.com.
All right, when's that album coming out, man? Okay.
Man, you know what, man? Once I cook up this cover art idea that I have, I'm gonna put a single out. I know what song I want to put out first, and it's my definite song that I'm gonna put out first. So I have the song, I just don't have the art to go with it. So once I get the art, it'll be out. So I'll let's say before the end of February.
That's good news. That's what I like to hear.
Yes, sir.
It was a pleasure having you. And
Thanks for having me, bro.
I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for joining me today on Thought Exchange. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I appreciate your patience and understanding for the quality or lack thereof in the video and audio today. If you enjoyed the episode, stay tuned for more episodes coming soon, and until next time, keep an open mind.